Hello, Flat Rock students. Today I want to talk with you about the fiction section of our library. So let's dive right in and learn about this area. First of all, let's just review what is fiction. So fiction are books that are made up. Now, there are some that are very realistic. It could be based on a historical event or a historical person or just things that can happen in our everyday life, but it's not a story that's true about one person, such as a biography. Others are wildly imaginative, like science fiction and fantasies and things that could never, ever happen. But all of that is included in our fiction section, and we're going to go through at the end of this and talk about the different genres. Now, most of it is in the fiction area, which in our library is an F for fiction. But there are some fiction books in the Dewey Decimal System that we have learned about, such as the 800s, which is poetry, and the 398.2s, which are our fairy tales. So if you have questions about that, we'll talk a little more after this so that you can, through this, see some front row pictures and areas of our library, but you can always come to me with questions if you're not sure and you want a specific book in the library. So our fiction area is when you walk into the library over to our right, and this is just a broad view of our whole fiction section. Let's look at it a little bit more close up. It starts over here. Here's the door, and it starts right here, and you can see that A because those are the books whose author's last name starts with A. And our fiction section is classified by the author's last name from A to Z. So if you have an author and her last name is Applegate, for example, Christina Applegate, then you're going to look for this little letter that's the A, and that gives you the general idea of where it's going to be. If you have an author whose last name is R, then you're going to look for the R and go to that area to find the book. I've done these labels of the alphabet just to make it easy for you to find the books. That's the only reason I've put them there, to kind of help you hone in on what area you should go to find your books. Well, continuing on down, this whole row is part of the fiction section. And then down this next row under our read quilt. Now we started with A, and this goes through R. Well, you know that that's not the end of the alphabet. That's just the end of where we could put bookshelves there. Otherwise, they would run up into that door in our flat panel. So we have to go around to another area to get to the rest of the books, which are over here by the door. And you can see it starts with S and continues on through Z. The final part over here is where I put our battle books for the current year, as well as some of the previous year's one if I have multiple copies. Typically, most of those are fiction books, so I just put them right there at the end of the fiction section. So that whole big circular area is where you can find all of our fiction books. Now let's talk about if you have an author whose last name starts with L, for example, you're going to go look for this L, and then it's going to be somewhere around there. So you can see on these spines, that's pretty closely located. It looks like that book right there starts with an L. But depending on what books are checked out or not, there might be some L books down this way a little bit. And they're definitely going to continue down lower. In fact, these are the next two shelves below that L. And all of these are L's. You can see right here at the end, it starts with M. So if you have an L, it's not just right where that L is, but it's that general area. That's where you start looking on the spines to find your book. So let's say that you want a book from the Chronicles of Narnia series, and the author is C.S. Lewis, L-E-W. If you notice on the spine, all of these books have an F. That just means fiction. You're in the right area of the library. This is as opposed to the E for everyone books or a 398.2. You're looking for that F for fiction. But below that is what is essential, because once you're in the fiction section, you have to know where to go. So if you wanted a book by C.S. Lewis, for example, such as The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you're looking on those spines for L-E-W. L-E-W. And you've just started at the top, and then you're on each row and you're looking for those letters. That is how you find the books in this area. Again, you go to the letter, and then around that area is where you start looking on the spines to find the exact book that you're looking for. Again, if you have questions and can't find a book, please always come to me. But I just want to empower you to be able to find books, not just in our library, but in any library that you go to, because generally speaking, all libraries classify their books as the Dewey Decimal System or the fiction section, and they do it this way. Now, you will notice on the spines of all of the books in our fiction section, we have a sticker. That sticker tells you the kind of book it is. It's called the genre. So within the fiction section, there are many different genres. Some of the stickers that I have in our library are the adventure, animal stories, fantasy, graphic novels, historical fiction, humor, mystery, realistic fiction, scary books, science fiction, and sports. Again, this is just another way to make it easier for you to find books. So one thing you can do if you find a book that you love is you can look at the author and think, ooh, I want to read some more books by this author. The other thing you can do if you find a book that you love, say you read a mystery and you're like, this is really good. Well, you could look for other mystery books. So in our library, every single book in the fiction section has a sticker. Notice up here, you've got sports, humor, fantasy, historical fiction, realistic fiction, mystery, some more humor. Down here, science fiction, realistic fiction, science fiction, fantasy, scary, fantasy, and so on and so forth. Just continuing down that row, you have adventure. They are all in there mixed up together because the books are still based on the author's last name. Now, some authors write different genres. You might have an author that's written some historical fiction and some realistic fiction and some mysteries. So all within that same author's last name, you have different books. Some authors do a lot of the same. And so you have a whole row like Mary Downing Hahn. She's a famous horror or scary books author. So a lot of the books in this area by her, they're all labeled as scary because she writes a lot of scary stories. This is only to make it easier for you to find a book you want to read. If it is helpful to you to look on the spine and look at that genre label, then go for it. If it's not helpful, then don't use it. But everything that I've done in this library is just to make it so you can find books you want to read, because ultimately, when you come to this library, there's lots and lots of choices. You don't have a teacher telling you have to read this book. You just need to find books that you want to read, because if you want to grow and learn and explore your world, books are the way to do it. And reading any kind of book that you enjoy is going to get you to that goal. We are all different. We all like different kinds of books. And so it's up to you to look and find books that you want to read while you're in the library. Well, I hope this has been helpful. I hope you found some books in the fiction section that you want to go and check out today, or at least look through to find some new books. But I'm always here to help you, and happy reading.